I used to believe that silence meant peace, that if you kept your voice low, your head down, and your family close, life would somehow reward you for patience. I believed love was enough. I believed blood could never turn against blood. That belief died the night our own son decided we were a problem he needed to erase. The drive to the cliffs felt ordinary. That's what haunts me the most. No arguments, no shouting, no warning signs flashing red, just the hum of the engine, the road stretching ahead, and our son sitting in the back seat, scrolling through his phone like any other night. My husband and I exchanged small talk. The kind couples use when they've been together so long that silence feels heavier than words. The air changed when we arrived. The ocean below roared with a deep, endless sound, like the earth itself was breathing. The wind was cold, sharp, unforgiving. I remember thinking how beautiful it was, how peaceful, how foolish that thought was. Our son stepped out of the car first. He walked toward the edge with confidence, hands in his pockets. I followed slowly, my shoes crunching against gravel. Something inside me tightened, a quiet instinct whispering that we should leave. But when you trust someone your whole life, you learn to ignore that voice. "Come closer," he said, not turning around. My husband reached for my hand. His palm was damp. I looked at his face and saw it. Their fear, raw and unmasked. Before I could ask anything, our son turned around. His eyes were empty. Not angry, not sad. Empty, like a room after everything valuable has been removed. "You shouldn't have talked," he said. I didn't understand at first. My mind scrambled, trying to catch up. "Talked about what?" I asked, my voice unsteady. He smiled, just slightly. "You know, that's when it hit me. The late-night phone calls he took in secret, the sudden money, the way he flinched whenever we asked questions. We hadn't accused him. We hadn't threatened him. We had only worried, only asked, only loved. Love, it turns out, can be dangerous to someone who has something to hide." My husband took a step forward. "Son, whatever this is, we can fix it." The word son seemed to irritate him. His jaw tightened. "No," he said calmly. "You can't." The next few seconds fractured my life into a before and an after. He moved fast, faster than I thought possible. A hard shove from behind, sudden and violent. The ground vanished beneath my feet. The sky spun. My scream was stolen by the wind. As we fell, time stretched. I saw flashes our son, as a child learning to ride a bike. Birthday candles, school plays, nights we stayed up waiting for him to come home safe. All of it collided with the reality of branches tearing at my skin, and the certainty that we were about to die. Then I felt my husband pull me close, his mouth near my ear despite the chaos, despite the pain. "Pretend we're dead," he whispered. Those words cut through the terror like a blade. I don't know how my body obeyed, but it did. When we crashed against a ledge lower down the cliff, pain exploded through me. Something in my leg snapped. I bit down hard to keep from screaming. I tasted blood. My vision blurred. We lay still, completely still. Above us, gravel shifted. Footsteps. A shadow passed over the edge. I felt his presence like a weight on my chest. I wanted to cry. I wanted to call out. I wanted to ask why. But I didn't move. Not a finger. Not a breath louder than the wind. Minutes passed, maybe more. My muscles burned from staying rigid. My lungs screamed for air. Finally, the footsteps retreated. The engine started. The sound faded into the distance. Only then did I allow myself to breathe. The realization settled slowly, cruelly. Our son believed we were dead, and a part of him was relieved. We stayed there until the cold crept into our bones, and the sky began to change color. Every second felt like punishment. Pain pulsed through my body in waves. But worse than that was the emptiness in my chest, a grief so deep it felt bottomless. This wasn't just an attempt on our lives, it was a rejection of everything we were. When the sun finally rose, it revealed the damage, torn clothes, blood-soaked skin. My husband's arm bent at an angle it shouldn't bend. I wanted to look away, but couldn't. Survival doesn't allow denial. We moved slowly, painfully, crawling along the rock face, driven by nothing but instinct. There was no anger yet, no thoughts of justice or revenge, only one goal: stay alive. With every inch we crawled, a truth burned deeper into me. Sometimes the greatest danger doesn't come from the world outside. Sometimes it grows inside your home, eats at your trust, and waits patiently for the moment you turn your back. That day, lying broken beneath a cliff, I learned something I wish I never had to learn. You can raise someone with all the love you have, and still become disposable to them. But as the sun climbed higher and warmed my face, another thought surfaced, quiet, stubborn, impossible to ignore. If we survived this, our lives were not over. They were just beginning in a way we never chose but would have to face. The first sound I remember after that night was not a voice. It was my own breathing, ragged, shallow, unfamiliar. Each inhale felt borrowed, like my body wasn't convinced I deserved another one. Pain settled in, slowly, layer by layer, until it became the only thing I could clearly feel. We didn't speak much as we crawled. Words felt useless. Everything that needed to be said had already been carved into us. My husband moved ahead of me, dragging his injured arm, stopping often to look back and make sure I was still there. Every time our eyes met, there was a silent agreement. Keep going, no matter how slow. Hours passed before we found a narrow trail leading away from the cliff. By then, the sun was high enough to burn my skin. My mouth was dry. My thoughts came in fragments. At one point, I laughed softly, hysterically, because it felt absurd that the world could look so normal after what had happened. Birds flew overhead, waves crashed below. Life went on, unaware that two parents were bleeding out of their own child's betrayal. A stranger found us near the trailhead. He froze when he saw us, eyes wide, hands trembling as he reached for his phone. I remember him asking, "What happened?" and me struggling to answer. How do you say something that sounds impossible even to your own ears? At the hospital, bright lights replaced the sun. Machines beeped. Doctors spoke quickly, clinically. Broken bones, internal bruising, severe trauma. They said we were lucky. I wanted to scream at that word. Lucky felt like an insult. When the nurse asked who should be contacted, I stared at the ceiling. My husband and I exchanged a look. There was only one name that mattered, and neither of us said it. The silence between us was heavy, but it was protective. Saying his name felt like inviting him back into our bodies, and we couldn't survive that. The police came later. Questions followed, timelines, locations. They asked if anyone might want to hurt us. My throat closed. My husband spoke instead. He told the truth, slowly, carefully, like handling glass. The officer's face changed when he understood, not shocked disbelief, as if his mind refused to accept that his son could do this. I didn't blame him. I had spent years refusing to accept it too. When they left, the room felt smaller. The truth lingered in the air, heavy and undeniable. I turned my face toward the window, watching the sky darken into evening. "I keep thinking," I said finally, my voice barely there, "that I must have failed him." My husband shook his head. "No," he said. "We failed to see who he became. That's not the same thing." That night, sleep didn't come. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt the shove again, the weightlessness, the fall. I flinched at every sound. Nurses noticed. They spoke gently. One of them sat beside my bed longer than necessary, holding my hand without asking questions. That simple kindness almost broke me. In the days that followed, reality settled in. News reached us that our son had reported us missing. He sounded worried, they said, distraught. He played the role well, too well. I realized then how deep his betrayal went. This wasn't panic. This wasn't an accident. It was calculated. Anger finally came, not loud, not explosive, but cold and sharp. It wasn't about what he had done to our bodies. It was about what he had tried to take from us. Our truth, our voices, our existence. Still, beneath the anger was something worse. Grief. I mourned the son I thought I had, the future I imagined, holidays, grandchildren, growing old with family around us. All of it collapsed under the weight of who he truly was. One afternoon, as sunlight spilled across the hospital floor, my husband looked at me and said, "We don't have to disappear." I didn't answer right away. Disappearing felt tempting, changing names, moving far away, becoming shadows. But something inside me resisted. "If we disappear," I said slowly, "he wins twice." That was the moment everything shifted. Surviving the fall had saved our lives, but choosing not to hide that would save who we were. I understood then that pretending to be dead had been a strategy, not a surrender. And strategies are meant to end. We were still breathing, still thinking, still here. And for the first time since the cliff, I felt something unfamiliar stir inside me, not hope exactly, but resolve. If we were going to live, we would live awake. The weeks after we left the hospital felt unreal, like we were walking through someone else's life. Our bodies were healing slowly, wrapped in bandages and routines, but our minds lagged behind, stuck on that edge of the cliff. Every morning, I woke up expecting to hear my son's voice in the house, then remembered there was no house to go back to. That place, filled with memories and photographs, no longer belonged to us. It felt contaminated by silence and lies. We decided to sell it, not because we needed the money, but because staying felt like agreeing to disappear quietly. Packing our lives into boxes was harder than the fall itself. Every object carried a memory. A coffee mug he once bought me, a jacket my husband wore to our son's graduation. I wanted to throw everything away, but my husband stopped me. "These are our memories," he said softly. "He doesn't get to destroy them too." So we kept what mattered and left the rest behind. We moved to a small town where no one knew our story. The streets were quieter. People smiled without asking questions. At first, anonymity felt like relief. We could breathe without being recognized as victims, without seeing pity in people's eyes. But silence has a way of growing heavy again, if you let it. My body healed faster than my trust. I jumped at sudden movements. I checked locks twice. Sometimes I woke up in the middle of the night convinced I was falling. My husband would reach for my hand, grounding me, reminding me that we were still here. One evening, sitting on the porch as the sun dipped below the horizon, he said, "We survived something most people never will." I nodded. "I don't know what to do with that." "Maybe," he said, "it's not about what we do. Maybe it's about what we don't hide anymore." That idea stayed with me. That I started volunteering at a local community center, mostly to keep my mind busy. There, I met parents who carried quiet fears in their eyes. Some talked about children who had changed, about distance, about secrets they didn't know how to confront. I listened more than I spoke. Listening felt safe. One day, during a small group meeting, someone shared a story about being betrayed by family. The room went quiet. I felt my chest tighten. Without planning to, I spoke. I told them our story. Not every detail, just enough. Enough to be honest. The reaction wasn't shock. It was recognition. Heads nodded. Tears were wiped away. After the meeting, people came up to us not with questions, but with gratitude. They said things like, "I thought I was the only one, and thank you for saying what we're afraid to say." That's when I realized something powerful. Pain isolates, but truth connects. We began sharing more, carefully, intentionally, not to punish our son, not to chase justice, but to give meaning to our survival. We spoke about boundaries, about how love doesn't mean blindness, about how silence can be dangerous when it protects the wrong person. At night, doubt still crept in. I wondered if speaking out made us cruel, if forgiveness meant we should stay quiet. My husband answered that better than anyone. "Forgiveness," he said, "is something you do for your heart. Silence is something you do for someone else's comfort." I thought about that for a long time. We never stopped loving our son. That was the hardest truth to accept. Love doesn't disappear just because trust is destroyed. But love changed shape. It became distant, guarded, real. Some days were heavier than others. Some days I felt strong. Other days I felt like that broken woman on the rocks below the cliff. But even on the weakest days, I knew one thing for certain. We were no longer pretending. We had survived being pushed into silence. Now we were choosing to speak carefully, honestly, and on our own terms. And with every word we shared, the weight on our chests grew a little lighter, as if the fall no longer defined the height of our lives.